So as you may know, Innistrad Midnight Hunt is coming out soon. I'm looking forward to this set because one of the main themes in it is werewolves. And werewolves are nothing new to Magic. I mean, they came around in the first iteration of Innistrad. And I think they're a pretty cool tribe. They haven't really gotten much support in the past. But I like their mechanic of flipping over from a human into a werewolf. I think that's pretty neat. In the first Innistrad, there was no legendary werewolf, so you couldn't really make a werewolf commander deck. In the Shadows of over Innistrad expansion, or block, there was a legendary werewolf, but it was a huge letdown, because despite being a legendary werewolf, it did nothing for a werewolf tribal, so it was a really crappy werewolf commander. But I feel like for this upcoming set, I'm pretty sure that Wizards is going to try and, I suppose, right the wrongs that they did with Shadows over Innistrad and give us an actual, probably quite good Werewolf Commander. So, I'm kind of anticipating making that deck. I would like to make a Werewolf Commander deck. So what I've done is, I've already purchased a lot of the, what I would say, playable Werewolf cards are. And, because I feel like for cards like this, some of them are a little bit obscure. But, they only work with one strategy. This would only work with werewolves, pretty much. This card in particular actually does work outside of werewolves, but there are other ones where it's only with werewolves. And, for things like this, you'll find that the cards are super cheap until, they get a deck to go in, and then all of a sudden they just kind of explode in price, in particular the foils. So I just want to show you some cards today that I've picked up in anticipation for making the werewolf deck, because I think these are some good werewolves that would work well in a werewolf deck. So, first one you see here, the Mayor of Averrook. This was a pretty popular card when it was in Standard. It's just this is actually a good card outside of being werewolf. It's just a good card, right? But this one, I think it would work well in EDH because it gives a Lord effect to your werewolves. It gives you some wolf tokens for just 2 mana. I think that's quite good. And one thing that's held back the werewolf tribe is the really hard to meet requirements of getting them to flip and stay flipped. That's particularly hard in EDH where people cast lots of spells, right? So it would be hard to flip a werewolf. But I feel like the new commander is probably going to have something like an activated ability. I imagine it will probably be pretty cheap, like 1 or 2 mana or something, where it's basically transform target werewolf. So maybe it would even give you the option to transform it into a werewolf or back into a human, Something like that I think could work quite well. So there's this guy. Another one I think is pretty good is Scorned Villager. So I bought these all in foil, or most of them anyway. This one you can see. I thought about making a video about this, but so I ordered this card. It's supposed to be in excellent condition. How does that look for you? That's excellent, right? Yeah, this card was a pretty big letdown when I received it. Well, not a big letdown. I mean, it only cost 50 cents, but at the same time, that was the reason that I made the order for this one. But yeah, this card's in terrible condition. Probably have to grab a new one of these. But this card, I mean, it's a 2-mana mana dork, which is fine if it fits in your tribe. But if you can get it to flip and stay flipped, it even adds 2 mana and has vigilance. I think that could be quite good in Commander if you can get it to stay flipped. So Scorned Villager is a good one. Another mana dork. 2 mana 1, an Elvenwald Captive. So the werewolves from Eldritch Moon, they don't flip the same way that, or I suppose when I say flip, I should say transform. They don't transform the same way that the Innistrad ones do. For these, you just have to pay an activated cost, and it just stays transformed. But this one is good. Same reason as that. It's a 2 mana dork, and then if you can transform it, it adds 2 mana. So this one I think could be good. This one. Actually, I don't have this in foil. I do plan to get this in foil. The reason, though, that I'd like to get it is I don't think this is going to be reprinted, at least not in the main set, because it has Intimidate. And Intimidate is an ability that you don't really see on creatures anymore, so I don't think that's going to be reprinted in the main set. It could be, like, if there's some kind of weird inclusion, like Mystical Archives or something like that, then this could definitely be reprinted in that. But if it's not reprinted, then foils of this card I think are going to be very expensive. I mean, they're all, for an uncommon, they're already pretty expensive, like more than $10. But this one I think is what a lot of people are running right now is their Werewolf Commander just by house rules, because it's not a legendary card, but this works the best as a Werewolf Commander. You want an ability something like this, where non-human werewolves you control can't transform. So expect to see something along those lines on the new legendary werewolf. But Hammer Wolf is a good one to get, especially if you can find it in foil. This one is good too, Gaia Reach Bandit. So it's got the regular transform condition, but when it's transformed, it says whenever a werewolf enters the battlefield under your control, you can transform it. So that could be very useful in EDH. I think like a combination of these two cards, something like that, that'll probably be what's on the legendary card. So all of these so far, to get them in foil, or outside of this card, all of these in foil are still quite cheap. This one, it's one that I think was made with Commander not in mind at all. So since a lot of the werewolves are pretty old from Innistrad, the original version, I think a lot of cards then were not designed with multiplayer in mind or Commander. But this is a pretty good card despite that. I mean, 3 mana for a 2/2 is not great. You can do some damage to flying creatures with it, but it's good when you flip it. So if you can get this to flip, you just pay a red, tap this, and you fight something. So that's repeatable removal on a creature, which is pretty good, I think. This one is pretty cool. This one is quite good for Commander, I think. So even if you don't flip it, it's actually still pretty decent. Whenever an opponent casts a spell during your turn, you draw a card. That's fine, right? You know, lots of people are casting spells on other people's turns in EDH. But if you flip it, then you get to draw 2 cards when the player does that. So I think that's pretty cool. Here's one. This is going to be a good example of the foil multiplier on these really tribe-specific cards being quite high. Huntmaster of the Fells. This one I got specifically the old pack foil from Dark Ascension, because this actually was already reprinted in foil in a From the Vault. So it's very easy to get a foil Huntmaster. You just get the From the Vault version, and that's like less than $5, I believe. It's pretty cheap. However, this version, the pack foil from Dark Ascension is, you know, like $40 plus. And if this doesn't get reprinted, it's just going to be more, I feel like. So for cards, this one definitely could be reprinted. But for cards like this that they have a good chance of being reprinted, I feel like it's pretty safe to just get the original pack foil, because you can already see that it still maintains its price because it has been reprinted in foil, but the original version is still expensive. But this one is also pretty good in EDH, right? Like, it does something whenever it transforms and whenever it transforms back. It creates you wolf tokens. It can do some damage to stuff. Just a pretty good card overall. This one's pretty cool too. Instigator Gang. This is one in particular that I think if it's not reprinted, then this foil could be semi-valuable. But, it's not great for 4 mana. It's just 2/3 attacking creatures you control get 1/1/0. But if you can get it to flip and stay flipped, it's trample attacking creatures you control get +3/0. That's a really big anthem effect, right? It's not even just for werewolves, it's for all your creatures. So this one can have a pretty big impact in EDH. This one is pretty cool, I think. Afflicted Deserter. This one is one that would be particularly good, I think, if the new Werewolf Commander has an ability that lets you control when your werewolves transform and not. Because when this one transforms, you get to destroy an artifact. And that's, if you have repeatable artifact destruction on a creature in Commander, that's very good, actually. And it even does some damage to the artifact's controller. So this could potentially be a good one. Here's one. This one I think is actually going to be the best werewolf in the deck, probably. But it's not a werewolf, but it works with werewolves. Nightpack Ambusher. It's a very good card. It's pretty recent. It was awesome in Standard. 4/4 flash. Gives all your wolves and werewolves +1/+1. But then it works with the werewolf transform mechanic. Because it says at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast a spell, you make a wolf token. Well, werewolves, they want you to not cast spells in order to transform, right? So that works very well with this, and it even has flash, so you can cast it on your opponent's turn to make sure that you don't cast things on your turn, so your things flip. The thing with this though is, I believe it was printed as a 4 in a challenger deck, so there's a lot of this card around. It's very easy to get it. It's very cheap. I feel like even with Werewolf, Tribal, and Commander, this is still probably going to be a pretty cheap card. It might go up to like $1 or $2, but The foils of this, it could be good to get a foil, I think. I don't have one yet, but I would like to get one. So this could be a good one to get in foil. Not saying spec on foils, but for these, just if you're anticipating to want to make a Werewolf Commander deck, I would recommend getting these cards sooner rather than later in foil. This is one of my favorites, actually, Sage of Ancient Lore. It's pretty cool, 5 mana, so kind of a lot. But, so on the human side, its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand, which is not great for 5 mana, right? You do draw a card when it enters the battlefield, which is nice. But then on the flip side, Vigilance, Trample, its power and toughness are equal to the cards in all players' hands. So in a 4-player commander game, just think of how often you're playing a game and there's probably one player who has like a reliquary tower and they've drawn like tons of cards and they always have 20 cards in their hand. This could end up just one-shotting someone, right? Like if you can get it to connect. But even if that's not the case, chances are, on average, each person might have at least 3 or 4 cards in their hand. So this is going to be, 10, a 10-10 plus, even on the low end, right? So this card I think is really cool for Commander. I'm looking forward to playing this one. Here's one that I alluded to earlier, Ulrich of the Crawling Horde. So this was the legendary werewolf they printed in, it was Eldritch Moon. And it was a big letdown for everybody looking forward to a legendary werewolf because this does nothing for Werewolf Tribal. It's not even a good commander, right? But just with that being said, this is a pretty good card to put in the 99 of a Werewolf Commander deck. So it's a 4/4 for 5. But the thing that's good with this is it does something when it transforms into either side, much like Huntmaster of the Fells. So when it enters the battlefield or transforms into this, a creature gets +4/+4 till end of turn. That's a pretty big boost, right? So that's pretty decent. And when it flips over, you can have this fight a non-werewolf creature you don't control. So for this one also, if the new legendary werewolf has an ability that lets you control when your things are transforming, this could be a very good card in the 99 because you get to reuse both of the abilities on either side of this card. So this one, I think, to get in foil is probably... this one has the most potential to go up in price, I feel like, because it's a mythic from a fairly old set. And the foils right now are pretty cheap. They're like $3 or $4 or something like that. So I have some high hopes for this one. That's all the creatures, actually. All of the werewolves, I should say. There is one more creature. It's not a werewolf. Actually, I don't really expect this one to go up in price or anything, but I just want to point it out because I think it'll be a really good card in the deck. Neath. It's a pretty recent card from Jumpstart, but you notice a lot of the werewolf-related cards, they have the fight mechanic. Things like, where was it? This one and this one, they both can repeatedly fight things, and there's also, I think, an instant or sorcery, something that lets your werewolves fight. So there's sort of a fight tribal theme going on with werewolves. And that's what Neath is. This is like the fight tribal commander, right? So this is a very good card that that could go in the 99 of a Werewolf Commander deck. Doesn't exist in foil though. This other one, I'll point it out. I mean, it's just one to include in the deck. I don't expect this to go up in... Well, actually, one thing that with this card, it could go up in price, but the original foil, much like the Huntmaster. So I have the From the Vault version here. I don't imagine this one to move much, because I don't think it's actually even that good of a card in the Commander deck. If I was playing this, the most competitive version of the deck, I don't feel like I would play this card, but it is very thematic, so I feel like a lot of people probably will want to include this in their Werewolf Commander deck, because it's Kessig Wolfrun, right? But I feel like the pack foils from Innistrad of this, yeah, those could go up, but there's plenty of From the Vault versions available also for quite cheap. There's just a couple more here, some instants, well, an instant and some enchantments. Moon Mist. This one is quite cool, it's a 2-mana instant, transform all humans, and then prevent all combat damage that will be dealt by creatures other than wolves or werewolves. That's a very powerful effect, actually, because it allows you to transform your things when you want at instant speed, and it's a fog for pretty much all creatures except yours. This one also, it's just a common, right? But it's a common, if you can get a foil, I feel like this one could be semi-valuable in the future, assuming it's not reprinted. It could be reprinted, right? So you never know, but even the original foil could hold a premium. There's also this enchantment, Full Moon's Rise from Innistrad. Werewolf creatures you control +1/+0 and have trample. So it's a pretty nice anthem. You can also sack it to regenerate all werewolves you control. So it's much like this one, you know, getting the foils, I think, those could be good to get right now. This one is an uncommon, so it could be, you know, a little bit more valuable than that one maybe, but it's just a good one to pick up now, right? Well, it's still pretty cheap. And the last one here from Shadows over Innistrad, Howl Pack Resurgence. Enchantment with Flash. Each creature control that's a werewolf or wolf gets +1/+1 and has trample, so pretty similar to this, but it has Flash. Also gives them a little boost to their toughness. So this one also isn't uncommon. It'll be just a nice one to pick up in foil while it's cheap. So here are the cards that I've got in anticipation for the Werewolf Tribal deck. There are some more werewolves that could work well in the deck, like one in particular is Duskwatch Recruiter. That one is already somewhat expensive because it's a good card. It sees play in Modern sometimes, right? So to get that, well, I should say it's somewhat expensive in foil. Even non-foils of that, though, those could go up a pretty decent amount just because it's an actual good card, right? It's an uncommon from Shadows over Innistrad, so it's somewhat old. So that I would definitely like to play also. I'll probably grab one of those. There's some other werewolves, but I think those are what I've got here, plus the Duskwatch Recruiter are, I think, the best ones. And obviously there are going to be new werewolves, right? There's probably going to be lots of new playable werewolves that have been designed with EDH in mind in this set. So some of these might end up getting cut, but I think all of these are, at least right now, would be worth playing in a Werewolf Commander deck. So that's what I wanted to show you today. You know, let me know if you're also excited for a Werewolf Tribal and Commander. It'd be cool to hear what your predictions might be for what the new Legendary Werewolf would have. I'm really hoping that it does have some ability that allows you to control when your werewolves transform and transform back. I think that would be cool. But otherwise, if you're still watching, thanks for watching. It'd be cool if you can like and subscribe, and otherwise, I'll talk to you later.